I'd like to call the Litchfield Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting to order at 7:03, and we'll start by taking a roll call attendance. John, we'll start by you if you want to introduce yourself.
John Burnell, full member.
Kyle Derso, alternate member.
Jerry Sorensen, alternate member.
Al Gilbo, full member.
Laura Gandia, full member.
Mark Filato, alternate member.
Tom Cooney, alternate member.
Mark Benoit, alternate member.
Jeff Blackwell, building inspector.
And we have some new members, so welcome. Jeff is our
Thank
new
you.
building inspector, so welcome. Mark, Jerry. And, yep, that's it. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3 full members. So I'm going to appoint Tom to vote tonight and Kyle to vote tonight. All right. So this is a special meeting. It's not a regularly scheduled meeting. We do have 2 cases on the agenda. So I am going to call the first case, which is case number 2021-09. This is a special exception from LZO section 1208 to allow the installation of a sewage disposal system in the Wetlands Conservation District with a setback of 57 feet where a 100-foot setback is required. And another special exception from LZO 1208 to allow the construction of an accessory dwelling unit in the Wetland Conservation District with a setback of 44 feet where 75 feet is required. Owners and applicants are Andrew and Jessica McAvey. And the location of the property is 20 Birch Street, Litchfield, map 7, lot 8. And who will be presenting tonight?
Good evening, Andy McClavey, 20 Birch Street. First, can I say thank you very much for this special meeting? I greatly appreciate that.
And we apologize for
No,
last time.
I get,
But you
things
have a
happen.
full complement.
I know,
now.
right? Couldn't ask for more. So what do you want me to just start explaining what we're trying to do?
Oh, so yep, and you have criteria for the special exception. You'll need to go through each one of those criteria
Okay.
and demonstrate that you are able to meet that.
Okay. Is that basically those 5 things? Is that what I'm going for? The 7 things?
Yep, the 1208.01. So if you want to read from your application, that should have everything in there as well. But if you want to just kind of tell the board what you're doing and just familiarize us with it, and then we
Yeah.
can go through the criteria.
So what I'm looking to do is replace my failed existing septic on my property. We realized it was failing 5, 6, 7, 8 months ago, and been trying to work through it and end that time frame. We also wanted to build an in-law to have my in-laws move in with us. So started working through the process, trying to figure out exactly what we needed to do, and found that we were in a conservation area, which I had an idea because I do abut conservation land. They own to the left, if you're looking at the street, they own all that property on town property. So they own all that. And I went before them, I think almost a month ago. They had no issues with what we were doing. Their only ask, and I think it's probably written down somewhere, is that we don't put fertilizer on the back property, which I've never put fertilizer on the backyard or anywhere on my property anyway. So that's not a big deal is what they were looking for. I will say that so I hired a wetland specialist scientist. He came out multiple times throughout the kind of winter and the spring to look at how wet everything was being. He found if you're looking at my property on the right, that was able to sustain basically be a vernal pool. And that is the far side of where we would be. And on the left side where there was a wet area, he said that did not meet any criteria to be a vernal pool. It's dry most of the year. Granted, I will admit this year has obviously been super wet, so it's a little wetter this year, but it is that is the closer side of all the measurements of where they were taking. But our new septic is further away from our existing septic to the wetlands. And same thing with the addition. Our current residence is closer than the addition would be to the wetlands. It falls under.
Do you have a print or anything? Any type of map? Or...
Yeah, it was all included in everything we've submitted.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
She
I have it right here on my computer too if we need it.
No
So,
problem.
and I believe that should have, if that's the septic design, that should have actually what the proposed addition is on as well too.
Then we do have this in here too.
Yeah, I think that probably a little bit more detail into
Okay.
scale than that one as well.
Okay.
Is that from the wetland plans?
This shows the wetland, yeah,
Oh, okay.
but there's. should
And then
be-
I don't know if you should have the letter from the wetland scientist as well. If not, I do have that.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
You can keep going. I just want.
Okay, yeah, so basically, yeah, we're just trying to basically just move our extremely failed septic, which is the nice thing is when we started doing all the measurements and we had the land survey company out and everything, he actually is the one that said it. He goes, "You're moving this further away from what you have now." So he goes, and conservation was appreciative of that. We've done everything we possibly could to keep it kind of in our building envelope, I think is the in those lines that are on that. I do have a bigger copy of the land survey from Jeffrey Land Survey, and he has the lines on it. He goes, "You're staying basically within where you're already building, where your existing home is." So we tried everything in our power to keep it as tight in as possible, because obviously, once we found this, we're like, "Wow, I didn't realize how small of a building envelope I had on my property," and I've learned a lot over this whole process. That's for sure. Of what you can and cannot do on your property type thing.
So I know that we're not supposed to ask a lot of questions right now, but I had one question about conservation. Do you know when they acquired that piece of land?
Oh, geez. So
Was
I
it
want to
after-
say,
was it after you or before you?
oh, I've lived in this. So I actually purchased the house for my parents 5-6 years ago. I've lived in the house since I was a baby. I want to say it's 6-7 years ago. I want to say they purchased it. I think they got it from the Campbells who owned that property.
Okay.
I want to say,
Okay.
because I used to ride my 4-wheeler and everything all back through that area. I don't anymore. I don't have a 4-wheeler anymore. I don't anymore. You could do it back then. So yeah, they purchased it after I had already been there.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I got it. Thanks.
So did you want to go through the criteria?
Yep. So I think are those questions. Is that what I'm?
Yep.
Yep, but before you do that, let me just make sure that nobody has any questions about the general idea of what is happening. Everybody all set? Okay,
All right. So number one, the purpose of this construction or alteration shall be constructed in a way that does not restrict the water flow, because the purpose of the proposed septic system has state approval and we located away from the water flow. The proposed ADU is located directly behind the existing structure, and drainage from the roof line will not adversely affect any existing drainage. Number two, the purpose will not is not in any conflict with any and all proposes and intentions listed in section 1200-01, nor it's because it falls under this restriction regarding setbacks extension. The proposed changes will not violate any provisions described in the 1200.1. To ensure the wetlands in the vicinity are not adversely affected, we choose locations that are no closer to the wetlands than any of the existing structure and septic. Please also note the attached evaluation from a certified wetland scientist is stating that those are true. The use or activity proposed in tends cannot be resolvable I can't avoid it another way, I'm sorry. The home was built in the 1980s. It was not subject to the same setback rules as that exist today. The lot and home location were also suitable matter where the proposed location of the ADU and the septic are locations in which best protects the natural surroundings while still being practical. Number four, it can be shown that the least damaging route and methodology have been selected, and that which is being proposed is the best predictable alternative available today, because for the septics, it's a failing septic that is closer to the wetlands than the proposed system. The ADU, the location is the most practical as it will not adversely affect the surroundings, while as not diminishing the character of the neighborhood, as the ADU will be located behind the main structure and out of sight. You can't see the addition from the street at all. There's no way to really see it. You would just maybe see a little bit longer of a driveway and the steps coming down the side of the house. Number five, it can be shown reasonable and acceptable impact mitigation measures have been incorporated where necessary and appropriate to minimize wetland loss or drainage, because you can see the wetland scientists notes on all how they designed everything. The septic is an enviro-friendly one. It's not just pipe and stone.
So it's a chamber system?
Yeah, I think I think it sounds to be what more everybody's going to in general is what it sounds like. Yeah. No significant impact in the aquatic habitat or rare endangered species as listed by the state of New Hampshire or federal government will result. It's covered in the wetland scientist when he did all his research. It can be shown the adequate erosion and sediment control methods appropriate are used in corporate but detailed by the current recognized BMPs, stormwater mitigation and erosion control handbook. This is, again, it was all done on this approved state septic. And I believe there is a second stamp on there that the wetland scientist signed off on the septic proposal as well. I believe both stamps are on there.
Any questions from the board?
I have one question. So what's the plan for the existing failing system? Is that going to be abandoned in place? Or
So it is actually being removed because most of it is actually where the addition, the ADU is going. So most of that is being removed.
So it'll be cut and fill.
Yeah. Yeah, the price I got for the septic was pretty hefty and it's a lot of fill involved.
Any other questions? I'm going to open up to the public. Do we have anybody in favor of the application that would like to speak? If you're in favor, you can come and state your name and your reasons why, if you want to share those.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Ben Wood. I live here in Litchfield. I'm in favor of a project like this. I believe it helps, from everything I've heard tonight, helps the conservation area, helps improve them on their home, improve their septic situation, which has to be dealt with no matter what. And I believe it just adds value to the neighborhood, the home, and don't see an impact on neighborhoods, the neighbors, or any other conservation areas. That's it.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Mr. Wood? All right, thank you.
See if you.
Anybody else in favor of the application? Just state your name and address, please.
Jess McClavey, 20 Bird Street. I live in the home, so I'm quite in favor. Really need new septic. Really want my family to be part of our house and grow up in this town and watch our kids grow up in this town. So this is really important to us.
Anybody have any questions for her? All right, anybody else in favor of the application? Anybody opposed to the application? Anybody with questions? All right, none. Now, as part of the special exception process, your application was referred to the planning board, the conservation commission, and the health officer. So we did receive letters from each of them. So I'm just going to read those into the record. So we do have a letter from the conservation commission from Matthew Lepore. The Litchfield Conservation Commission reviewed the wetland special exception for 20 Birch Street, map 7, lot 8 at our July meeting. The commission voted 7-0-0 to recommend the wetlands exception on the condition that fertilizer would not be used to prevent impacts to the wetlands adjacent to the property. We do have a letter from Michael Croto, the chair of the planning board, dated July 29th. The Litchfield Planning Board held a special public meeting on Tuesday, July 27th, 2021 at the town hall to provide comments to the zoning board of adjustment. The planning board reviewed 2 special exceptions for wetland impacts under Litchfield zoning ordinance section 1208. The planning board voted 5-0-0 to recommend support for the special exception under section 1208 of the Litchfield zoning ordinance regarding 20 Birch Street, map 7, lot 8. And then we have a note from Doug Nichols, the health officer, dated Friday, July 9th. The health officer does not have any issues concerning the special exception request seeking setback relief for the construction of a septic system in an accessory dwelling unit. So we have those 3. Any other questions before we go into our deliberations?
I just had one procedural question, because I'm new. Is there a requirement for neighbor notifications and stuff like that?
Yes.
That's what he did, okay.
Yep,
all
yep.
right.
So that was actually, folks got 2 notifications for this particular case when it was first originally filed. And then they had a hearing earlier this month and we do not have a quorum. So we scheduled a special meeting and the voters received again another set of notifications for this meeting
Okay.
for tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so somebody want to make a motion to close public input?
I'll make a motion to close public input.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right. All right, so we have special exception criteria, and there's a lot to it to go through. So I'm going to start just reading through it, and then we can decide if we agree or not. So the first criteria is the proposed use, construction, and/or alteration shall be constructed in a way that does not unduly restrict the flow of water. Do you have any concerns over that?
No.
No.
So, who's gonna do it? Here's the full size one.
Yeah, somebody has mine right over there,
Yeah,
so
we have this right here.
that's mine, yeah.
It
And every-
took 45 minutes, but sorry about that.
We have the other 2 here. So does everybody understand when we talk about the wetland setbacks? Everybody's good in understanding that? All right. So we don't have any issues with that. It can be shown that the proposed use is not in conflict with any and all of the purposes and sections listed in 12.01 of the ordinance. And that is, I'm just going to read through those, that this special exception will not prevent, it will prevent the development of structures and land uses on or around naturally occurring wetlands because those structures and land uses may contribute to pollution of surface water, surface and groundwater by sewage or toxic substances. So we're good saying that it's not doing any of that,
Correct.
right?
So it's just a quick, so, and I'm assuming that the new septic system accounts for the addition and
Yes.
everything, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
What they're trying to do will prevent the destruction of or significant changes to natural and artificial wetlands. These wetlands provide many functions such as flood protection, groundwater recharge, pollution abatement, and water storage for later discharge to enhance stream flow during dry periods. So we don't have any concerns with that.
Correct.
All right. What he's doing is he's still going to protect the unique, ecologically sensitive and unusual natural areas.
Correct.
Is he protecting wildlife habitats, wildlife corridors, and maintain ecological balances?
Correct.
Yes.
He's protecting potential water supplies in existing aquifers and aquifer recharge areas. I don't think there's any of them there. So he's good. He's preventing the expenditure of municipal funds for the purpose of providing and/or maintaining essential services and utilities which might be required as a result of misuse or abuse of wetlands. I don't think he's doing any of that. And is he encouraging those low-intensity uses that can be harmoniously, appropriately, and safely located in or near the wetlands?
Yes.
The use of activity proposed and its attendant impacts cannot be reasonably avoided. We agree?
Yep.
The least damaging route and methodology has been selected, and that which is being proposed is the best practical alternative available.
Yes.
Yes.
Reasonable and acceptable impact mitigation measures have been incorporated where necessary and appropriate to minimize wetland loss or degradation.
Yes.
My concern with that one, I know we'll talk about that later, is the conservation's suggestion. We can put that as a condition, but to not use
Yes.
fertilizer to
Fertilizer,
help with
yeah.
that.
Agreed.
No significant impact on the aquatic habitat of rare or endangered species as listed by the state of New Hampshire federal government will result. I don't think you said anything about that.
It's in the wetland scientist report.
Okay, do you have that one?
No, but I think you mentioned that.
He
right?
mentioned it. but I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
see it in here.
I think it's in here.
The habitat part?
The wetland scientist report?
Yeah. You're specifically talking about the habitat? part
Yeah,
of this report?
just the report in general.
Yeah, it's in there. It's like in the middle of the bucket.
I'm not seeing the report per se.
Yeah, it's like at the end of the application, in the, at least of the online handout it is.
Oh, that's-
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to just kind of, should we read that out loud into the record? No. Okay. All right, so we do have a wetland scientist report from Pondview Wetland Consultants dated May 12th, 2021 by Jim Fougere. And I'm just going to read that into the record. This letter provides a summary of the findings regarding identification of vernal pool habitats located on 20 Birch Street in Litchfield, New Hampshire, as part of the ongoing permitting requirements for a septic design that has been approved by the state of New Hampshire. The review was conducted in coordination with Mike Sarakis, CWS of Beaverbrook Planning and Design, to provide multiple site visits to determine the viability of the wetland areas as vernal pool habitats. The 20 Birch Street parcel is a 1.323 acre lot in a forested area with a seasonally saturated forested wetland located on the east side of the house, plus a shrub wetland with standing water on the west side of the house. This house location predates the town of Litchfield's wetland buffer, as well as any wetland regulations specifically applying to vernal pools in New Hampshire. It should also be noted that this house and the associated developed area of the property already occur within the town's wetland buffer. The vernal pool habitat description. Vernal pools are ephemeral wetlands which fill annually with precipitation runoff or groundwater. These pools are utilized by specific amphibian and invertebrate species for breeding or during other life stages. Typically, identification is based on the presence of these indicated species and specifically the presence of breeding activity by the indicated species. The evidence includes the presence of egg mashes of the wood frog and the mole salamanders, or the presence of obligate vernal pool species like fairy shrimp. Findings: the forest wetland on the east side of the house does not appear to be capable of maintaining sufficient standing water to provide a viable vernal pool habitat. The west side wetland did appear to provide sufficient hydrology and some of the typical site conditions associated with a vernal pool habitat. The field review of the Birch site was conducted on March 12th and April 23rd, 2021. The timing of the site visit was selected to provide a broad range of dates to coincide with a typical season for vernal pool breeding activities. The field review was conducted along the edge of the wetlands as well as in the adjacent ponded areas. However, no evidence of breeding activities such as egg masses of amphibians were observed on the site. No secondary or other obligate indicators such as Candace flies or fairy shrimp were observed. Based on these findings, it has been determined that the wetlands on the west of the house at 20 Birch Street does not appear to provide vernal pool habitat at the time. All right, that's that.
Sounds like you did the test right at the right time too.
And then we have adequate erosion and sedimentation control methods appropriate to the use are incorporated as detailed by the current recognized BMPs, Stormwater Management and Erosion and Sedimentation Control Handbook for urban and developing areas in New Hampshire, Rockingham County. I'm going to say yes, anybody have an issue with that? And
Yep.
state wetland permits as required are obtained. There's no permit?
I don't think there was any special permits, no.
Right, so those are the criteria. So we went through those. Anybody want to talk about any of those criteria? So we have two special exceptions. One's for the addition.
So- Had this not been a piece of conservation land, would the setbacks be different?
It's not a piece of conservation land. It's how they're delineating the wetlands.
Yep.
Just- Anybody can own land if it has wetlands on it. That's
Yep,
where you get into the
exactly.
conservation buffer. So this is what's pushing his building envelope to be smaller.
Okay, I thought you said conservation, does conservation
they
own the
own-
land around you?
They own, I used to
Kinda,
call it the
right?
sand pit, but they own two. If you look at my house on the left side, they own that property.
Conservation have different,
Nope, so conservation could own this property
Yep.
and there may not be a wetland buffer. So conservation can have a piece of land without wetlands on it, but this particular piece that if this is
Okay.
one, it has wetlands. When you have wetlands, now you have a wetland buffer,
Yep.
and then you have the wetlands and then you have
and
the
then you have
buffer.
the setbacks.
Right, from that. So
Okay.
you can see that line
Yep.
goes already through his existing house.
So I got a double-edged sword in a way on that one. They just happened on the
Sorry, so
property.
you're gonna tear your house down.
But at the time his house was built, those wetland buffers were not in
Yeah.
effect. Any other comments?
Well, and then the addition seems to be outside of the buffer.
The addition,
Well, no,
exactly,
the
the addition's in the buffer.
The addition is in the buffer.
It's just a tiny little bit, well, maybe like a tiny little corner right there on that one.
Can you just see that?
Yep.
just again?
And his,
I'll just put those back here.
this was my copy, so. Because for his request, he's saying he's supposed to have a setback of 75 feet, but he only has 44. So,
From the buffer.
Yep.
Right.
you're
But
supposed
he, I mean, he can't go any, even if he were to move the addition like more towards the back of his house, I mean, he's
Still
got
be in
buffer
there,
on both
still-
sides,
Right,
so there's
yeah.
not, and he's stuck. He's got a
Yep.
double-edged sword, so.
And what is this right here? This little space, is that part of the house?
I don't know, that's what I was wondering. You have that little square between the existing dwelling and then the addition.
This is deck. Is it a deck that connects?
I do have a deck that's been on
And I
there.
see the deck off the back, it's a 10 by 10, but then there's,
Do you want to come up and
This
take a
little-
peek?
this
So
little
you
area.
guys- What is that? Right above the
This
house?
little area.
That is an existing deck.
Okay.
oh, that's an existing deck.
So if you didn't have the deck, maybe pull it up. Still wouldn't really make much of a
Yeah,
difference.
he'd still be in it,
Yeah. Well, it'd be in the second, so I don't see that making. a
yeah.
difference. So, Jerry, you mentioned several times, I just wanted to get some more input from you about the existing failed septic. Should we have any type of conditions about how that should be managed since it is?
No, I just wanted to know if it was going to be abandoned in place or removed, and then the answer that he gave was removed, which would be what I would prefer. Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to make that a part of the conditions then, because that's the best for the wetlands.
So the tank would be removed.
Tank,
Yeah,
yes,
the
yeah,
tank.
because actually the tank is right where,
Your system you have now is stone and pipe?
yes.
So would you keep the stone and pipe and slope, or would you?
No, that's gonna end up, because I'm gonna kind of make that into the lawn, so that's gonna come out anyway, kind of where they're gonna be working, so it's coming out.
So remove the tank and what else?
And my tank is actually in the
Tank,
middle
pipe, and
of
stone.
where they're
The
building.
ADU,
so-
right?
Not
Yeah.
the system part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no choice but to remove the tank, because the
Tank and
tank is
leach.
going right, the tank is right where that's
Tank
going.
and leach, would be the wording?
Well, Litchfield.
So remove of the tank and leach field
Correct.
and pipe and stone?
That's the Litchfield.
Yeah, that's the leaching field.
Shop. Sorry. Any other comments? Questions? Jeff, did you want to add anything?
No, not at this point.
Okay. All right, so we have two requests. I'm gonna take them separately, just in case somebody thinks it's okay for the septic, but not for the accessory dwelling. So I will make a motion in case number 2021-09 to grant the applicant's request for a special exception from LZO section 1208 to allow the installation of a sewage disposal system in the Wetlands Conservation District with a setback of 57 feet where 100-foot setback is required, with the conditions that the existing failed septic tank and leach field be removed and that area be properly loaned and seeded, and that there be no fertilizer used in the backyard.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So that motion carries 5-0-0. So now we have the accessory dwelling. So I will make a motion in case number 2021-09 to grant the applicant's request for a special exception from LZO section 1208 to allow the construction of an accessory dwelling unit. Do we know the dimensions of that before I?
25 by 32. So
Yeah.
25.
Yeah, 25 by 32. Yep.
Ex-
Put that right in there.
Yep, so I'm gonna put that in there.
I knew I had someone sitting right here.
So to grant the request to allow the construction of an accessory dwelling unit not to exceed 25 by 32 square feet in the Wetland Conservation District with a setback of 44 feet where a 75-foot setback is required, with the condition that there be no fertilizer used in the backyard.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So that passes 5-0-0.
Can I ask just one question? So I know how we're supposed to have a 30-day like window before I can do anything. So I already have people lined up to start on the 23rd. Am I having to push them back?
No. And you can correct me, but that 30-day period is an appeal period.
Okay.
So we recommend that you do not build within the 30-day appeal period. And Jeff, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So if you do start building within that and somebody comes back in and appeals it, it could cause.
It was just the septic that I had lined up.
But
to
right,
start.
that would cause an issue. So it is in a 30-day appeal period. I'm not quite sure if the town has any other type of position on that, but that's just the appeal period. So if you do start building within that time, then I believe it's a proceed at your own risk, that that's still an appeal period. But I'm gonna just caution you, like I would double check, with Jeff tomorrow in the town if they have a different opinion on that, but that's my understanding.
Absolutely. Okay.
Any other questions for us?
Nope, that's it.
Right, and again, we apologize
No,
for
and
the
I thank
mishap.
you very much for getting us in a timely manner.
Okay,
Have a good night.
thank you. All right, so the next case is case number 2021-10, a variance from LZO Section 310 to allow the construction of a 24 by 24 garage and a 10 by 16 breezeway, which will encroach 8 feet into the side setback where a 20-foot setback is required. The name of the applicant is BTW Construction, Ben Wood. Owners are Anne Marie Resnick and Corey Gannon. Location of the property is 18 Greenwich Road, Litchfield, New Hampshire, map 13, lot 99. And who will be presenting?
Good evening. Don't mind my hairline. What's that?
You were just up here.
Yes. Yeah, I make my rounds.
What happened to your
Everybody's friend.
hair?
Yeah, it's trying to be polite.
Yeah.
I don't take my hat off for everybody. My name's Ben Wood. I own BTW Construction here out of Litchfield. I'm here on behalf of my customers, and with me is one of my customers, Corey Gannon and Anne Marie, over at 18 Greenwich in Litchfield. We're looking to basically, in our vision, bring their existing home up to the neighborhood standards with adding a 24 by 24 two-stall garage with a 10-foot wide breezeway. They have an interesting lot that doesn't allow us to build this structure off of the existing home based on the way that the lot is shaped. They are on an inside corner on the street. So their lot is kind of wide at the front, gets very narrow as it goes towards the back. And it requires us to encroach on the 20-foot side setback by approximately 9 feet. So we're here looking to get a variance to get approved so we can build them their garage and breezeway.
Anybody have any initial questions before he gets into the 5 points?
How deep in the setback are you in the garage?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
How deep in the setback are you in the garage?
We're looking to go about 9 feet.
We have 8 feet.
You do?
8 feet.
There a soffit or something that extends out a foot?
I might just be accounting for the width of the footing that's going to encroach a little bit underground, but the building itself is going to be
8 feet.
about 8 feet.
Does that include the overhang? Roof overhang, that's what we go by.
Roger that. No, it doesn't. So the building's 24 feet. So the breezeway is 10 feet off the existing house, and the garage structure itself is 24 feet off of the breezeway. So 34 feet total off the existing house.
Okay.
And then 1 foot overhang for the eave. So
Anybody have any questions before it gets into the 5 points?
I got one more.
Okay.
The road frontage. You know what the road frontage is on this lot?
The current road frontage?
Yeah.
Yeah, 93.2 feet. Oh, road frontage. I do not know that information.
184?
Yeah, it looks like actually it's very blurred in this image I have. It looks like 184.65.
Okay. Yep. All right. Thank you.
If you want to go through the 5 points.
Yeah, sure. So I actually can't pull it up on my phone right now for some reason. The actual application.
I can give you my copy if you
That'd
want.
be great, even if it's blank. I know
No,
him.
this is the copy that I printed out, so just make sure you give that back when you're done.
Absolutely. Oh, it's got my own handwriting and everything.
This is your septic tank. Your leaching field. I'm thinking existing that. You took that, moved it there.
So section 1 is application for variance. Variance is requested from Article LZO, Section 310, of the zoning ordinance permit. There's a letter of intent, which you have in front of you.
Yep. It's just the one, there should be 5 questions on there that you needed to answer.
These, you don't want me to go through the sections, just these questions?
The 5, yeah.
Roger that, gotcha. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the new garage will not disrupt any tree line privacy to the southeast neighbor, which is that side of the house that we're looking to build on. We are taking down a few smaller groups of saplings, trees on the property. It's one small grouping, but it doesn't affect the actual tree line. The area that we're cutting a few trees out of is actually pretty open itself, and there's no actual privacy that's going to be lost. If anything, we're adding more privacy by putting a building in the way. But we're not cutting down any of that stuff, creating any more lines of sights, opening the wood line up for any of that. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because it's a private addition to an existing house. The addition variance is needed due to the irregular shape of the lot. Substantial justice is done because we would bring this house to meet the neighborhood standards. Most homes in that neighborhood already have an attached garage with a breezeway. We're just kind of looking to bring their house up to conform with the rest of the neighborhood. The values of the surrounding properties are not diminished because we are adding value to the surrounding homes with the addition. Increase the property of their house, increase the property of the neighborhood. And again, bringing it up to kind of that neighborhood standard, attached garage, simple addition. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship because for the purpose of this paragraph, yada, 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 you want me to go through all that? Just read my answers.
Your answer, please.
Great. We are meeting the look and style of the other homes on that street, including the butters. We're not going to do anything crazy to the house. It's not going to be an extravagant looking addition. It's not going to not match the existing house, roof, siding, windows wise. It's going to be done in a timely manner. It will be minimally disruptive to the neighborhood as far as equipment, materials. We've got some room on site. We can store stuff. It won't, it's not going to be a structure that is framed up and sits with Tyvek on it for 8-10 months or anything like that. It's going to be an in and out project, not an eyesore, not going to be all kinds of stuff stored around it. And the finished product, like I said, is going to just look like it was always there.
Any questions?
Did you mention the size of the garage?
Yeah, the garage itself is a 24 by 24
Okay.
two-stall garage.
It's typical size.
Yeah.
And then the breezeway is 10 by 16, 10 in width, 16 in depth. And we don't come forward or back anymore on the lot. It's just to the side.
So was there any thought or about taking that garage and tilting its access and then using that transition, that your space to kind of create that connection there, and you'd avoid the property? I know it's very linear, and then probably linear is very.
Yeah, totally. So in order to use the existing driveway, there's really no opportunity to tilt it. Their house is set down on a hill. The driveway's kind of a straight shot in. That, and if we were to tilt it or offset it in any manner, it would look, differentiate itself from the rest of the neighborhood. Everything else is pretty much standard, 8 or 10 foot wide breezeway with an overhang in the front, attached garage. It wouldn't really mimic anything else in the neighborhood. And it also wouldn't function for the purpose of the garage. It would be aimed towards the hill where, they wouldn't be able to pull in directly or back out or, use it functionally.
Any other questions? I want to go back to the 5th criteria on there that you just spoke about. So the 5th criteria, there's a lot of stuff at the beginning. The focus of that is how this particular lot is unique from the others in the area. So what makes this particular lot different from others
Roger
in
that.
the area?
So this lot, as you'll see, I think you have the town tax map of it. This lot is irregular shaped like a piece of pie versus a square or a rectangle or anything that's got any width to it. It gets very narrow towards the back due to it being on the inside corner of the road. So it's different from a lot of the other lots where, it's restricted on width. And, the building location, there's not much that you can do. There's not much space that you can move around in order to make it conform to the lot. Whereas other lots on outside corners, lots go out. They get narrow at the front. They have their frontage. They go out, or they go straight back, or they go like a parallelogram. They go diagonally back or diagonally another direction. But this particular lot in question is, shaped like a piece of pie. And, the house is at the middle of the piece of pie, and there's just not enough room.
And is there something at the back corner of the lot?
There's a conservation easement at the back corner of the lot,
Right.
correct?
And
Yeah,
how
but we're
much-
not going to encroach on
Right.
that.
No, I'm just saying, but takes up part of your building envelope as well. too.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And that's a significant portion of the backyard.
Yes. Yes, it is. Just under half, approximately.
Any other questions from the board? I'm going to open it up for public input. Anybody in favor of the application, please come forward.
You're in favor,
You can come up with questions, yeah, but if I'm asking for a favor, if you want to come up now with questions, sure.
So I'm the neighbor for Corey and
Yes.
Anna Marie.
You have to state your full name and your address,
Kevin
please.
Follett, 16 Greenwich Road,
So you are
the abutting neighbor.
on this side where the garage is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they approached me, which I really appreciate. They've been living next to me forever. Really, really nice people. And we do, when you're adding a 34-foot extension, it's bigger than my whole house. I have a little gambrel. So every house on the street is not like this. Mine's 1,800 square feet, no garage.
Mhm.
So I was more than happy, still remain happy and in support of it, but I do have a question.
Sure.
Being naive to this, so when it was told to me that they'd cut a couple trees down and be a handful of feet, now it's up to 9. That's, on a 30-foot, that's what, a fifth of the entire structure coming onto my property. Do I have to pay more in taxes? Do I pay less in taxes? What if I sell the house tomorrow? I've been there 24 years, but my kids are all grown.
Right, there's nothing going onto your
Nothing's going
property.
on.
So when he's saying setback for every particular lot,
Yeah.
you have a certain area that you can build in. So if you think of a square, there's, draw a little square in the middle of that square is the best way to do it.
Sure.
And that kind of, in the spaces between the two squares are what you call setbacks. So they can't build within the setback to provide for separation between, houses and structures. So it kind of gives you, as a neighbor, some privacy for that. So that's what you call the building setback. So there's a 20-foot building setback. So if you look at your property line and his property line, 20 feet over on this side and 20 feet over on this side, there's not supposed to be any structures. But now what they're seeking to do is to encroach into that 20-foot setback. So they're still on their property, they just are encroaching past that second line of the square. So it's not going to affect your
So
property.
change
at all.
my 1 acre and their 1
No,
acre.
no, 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 no,
No,
no.
no,
He
no.
would never be able to build
Okay.
something on your property. So it's
Does
not
it
going to,
affect my taxes in any
nothing
way?
at
He's
all.
putting up a,
no. I mean,
okay.
he,
I get a
I'm sure,
credit for anything that,
No.
because it's coming somewhere near.
no,
my-
nothing. No,
So it doesn't affect me in any way other than the 9 feet of
right. Only way that
gray area.
I think Ben would say
Alright.
that would affect you would be that it may increase your property value because he's making his house nicer. So that would raise property values. That was one of the things that he said as part of his presentation. But as far as your property lot, has no effect on that at all.
That's really was my main concern. Because otherwise, yeah, I mean, there's just trees in between us and I've been there forever. I have no plan on selling it, but you know, I just wanted to better understand it.
Does that answer all your questions?
Yeah, I think so. Who comes out to finalize it to make sure everything was, you know, within a foot or two of what they promised? Like
We'll
who does
defer
it?
to building inspector.
All right. And am I, as the abutter, allowed to see any of the plans and how it frames and how many feet it is? And
Those are all public record.
great. Excellent. Okay. That was my only concern.
Jeff, did you want to add?
No,
anything to that?
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
It will probably have to have a certified foundation plan for it. So we'll know exactly where it is on their property. So you'll see that it's going to be exactly 8 feet or, 8 feet, half an inch, or whatever it winds up being.
Sounds great.
So you know exactly.
Just wanted to do my due diligence. 'cause,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely. That's why we have a public hearing and that's why you're notified.
understand what was going on or how it transpired. So it really doesn't sound like it affects me in any way.
Do you feel like all your questions were answered? Do you have, do
Okay.
you have any others?
No, thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks. for
So
doing it.
are you in favor of the garage? Are you in favor?
Yeah, absolutely. Now that I understand.
Ben, could you just give me back my copy?
Certainly.
So I put it up here.
Anybody else in favor of the application?
My name is Matt Shoemaker, 20 Greenwich Road. I'm on the other side of them.
Okay.
But I think, Ben did a great job, but I did want to speak in support of this as well, just because I have a very similar lot with similar challenges. And I just want to accentuate one of the points that Ben brought up, which is if you try to twist it, that was a great question, because I've been looking at a million ways to do mine. They had to fill our lots in quite a bit. So there's pretty big drop offs. So even behind where he's putting this, it's a pretty intense drop off into his backyard. And the gradient of the hills on the front of these properties is pretty intense. Even from his lot to their lot, it flattens out quite a bit. So there's really no options for how you can twist these or turn them or move them to get things in, cars. It would be insane to try to drive a car down those hills. I've seen the work that they've been doing and it's been great. There are a lot of houses in the neighborhood that don't have garages, but more people have been putting garages on their homes. And I think that it really improves the character of the neighborhood because there's less cars just sitting in driveways rusting. People are putting their bicycles in those as opposed to a million, like my house, unfortunately, which has a plastic shed in the driveway. I went upgraded from a tent garage. It's like really brutal. And I have directly seen, I am a real estate attorney. I have directly seen the benefit in the property values that we've had from people improving their lots. We abut very nice neighborhoods and people have been doing a lot with our neighborhoods. With our particular road. So I think this is something that, I hope that you guys will grant for them because I think it's really a great thing that they're doing. And I think they're going to do a really nice job with it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for him? Anybody else in favor?
I'm Corey Gannon. I'm a resident of 18 Greenwich Road. So obviously I'm in favor of this. I appreciate my neighbors coming out to seek clarification and to provide their support. We are sensitive to privacy. So I can assure Kevin that, we will take down the minimal amount of limbs on trees to respect his privacy. I do think this is good for the neighborhood. It is only a 1-story garage, so it's not even going to be, 2/3 the height of our colonial house, and it's set down on a hill, so it's really pretty unobtrusive in terms of sight lines from the road. think that's it. I look forward to your support. It's something we've been planning for at least a decade, and now we're happy to be at this point.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Gannon?
Just, was there ever consideration, because it seems to me like if you did again, I'm just asking questions. If you did a single car garage, you wouldn't have to even be here. You'd be well within the setbacks, right?
We do, but between us, we have 5 children, and we have a lot of cars in our driveway.
Yep, I had 5 as well.
We would like to get 2 of them tucked away inside. And
Preferably yours and Anne Marie.
yes,
Yeah, Mom and dad's car needs to go in the garage.
Yeah.
There's 2 of them.
and when we're empty nesters, that's all the cars there'll be, which isn't too far off.
So just one other clarification point is that the justification for it is to match the other houses, and you have an odd lot.
Correct. Yeah. So, and to add to that, excuse me, in years past, I've actually done a few other projects on other homes on that same street. And you can drive up and down the street and, you can tell that, they're places, they look fitting, they match the neighborhood, they match the house style. They go with the property,
But they're all within the setbacks. It's just
the other ones, correct. Yeah. They had, different lots where they had, more flexibility with what they could actually do.
bummer of a lot, huh?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anybody else in favor of the application? You know that. Anybody opposed? Anyone with questions?
Yeah, can I just ask, so the purpose of the 10-foot breezeway, you said the garage is located based on the driveway? So you can't move that over any closer to the house?
They currently have an existing deck, so the garage is kind of already offset to the house. And the purpose of the breezeway is, the purpose of any breezeway, shoes, but as he stated, they have a lot of kids. So they're really looking to add that space as an entry to their house for, shoes, keys, hanging coats, stuff like that. And, in all honesty, even to get 2 cars into a 24 by 24 garage, it's pretty tight as it is, especially with the size of vehicles these days. It doesn't really provide the opportunity to shrink down that room at all, to give them what they really need in the project.
Yeah.
So I would just add the breezeway takes up nicely the space of the existing side deck and creates the necessary offset so that the driveway is a straight shot into the garage.
It's 10 years in the making.
Hmm?
Said 10 years in the making.
Anybody else? All right, I'll take a motion to close public input.
So moved.
Second,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're now into our deliberations, so thank you. All right, so we have 5 points that we're going to go through. So this is for the new folks, this is different from the special exception, has its own set of criteria. This is a variance, so it now has only 5 criteria compared to like 15 or so that we just went through. So the first criteria for the granting of the variance is the granting of the variance would or would not be contrary to the public interest. And because
Would not.
would not, and why would not?
It doesn't do it. It would not. It's going to raise the value of the area. It's going to add value to his home, which the town raises taxes for us. Sorry to say it, but yeah. And he's right. That whole area is, most folks have added garages on. It's staying in character.
Meets the harmony of neighborhood.
What's that?
Meets the harmony of the neighborhood.
There's no issue with health, safety, or welfare?
No.
Is that?
Can't imagine.
Anybody disagree or want to comment? All right, the second one is the spirit of the ordinance would or would not be observed because
I think it will be maintained because it's still going to provide privacy between the neighbors.
Anybody have any further comments or agree with Kyle, disagree? Want to add anything? right. Granting the variance would or would not do substantial justice because I would say it would. This one is a balancing act where you balance the loss to the applicant against the gain to the public and keeping the variance intact. So I would put forth that the loss to the applicant is greater than any gain to the public by keeping that setback in place.
Agreed.
For the following reason, the values of surrounding property would or would not be diminished.
Would not.
And why?
Well, you're adding value for this for having the two-car garage in itself. Plus, you get harmony in the whole household.
Invaluable.
That's very
Very
valuable.
valuable.
If you go one car, there's gonna be a battle there.
I think I know who.
Yeah,
Yeah, in most families.
already not represented.
And I was actually going to go back out to you, Mr. Wood.
Yes.
The addition, is that going to be the same style, the same color of the existing
Same
house?
siding, same color siding, same roof color shingles. We're not doing anything crazy with doors or windows. Same style garage doors as the majority of the neighborhood. Raised panel garage doors with a window in the top.
Okay.
Same everything.
Okay, thank you. Number 5, there is or is not a fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because, and this is owing to special conditions. So at first we have to figure out, is this particular property unique compared to others
I
in the
believe
area?
it is.
It is.
Everybody agree that it is unique? Okay, so if we
Just
agree,
I think we need to make sure that's identified so we don't set a precedent that every time the simplest construction is going to require variance. We would have to have some sort of precedent that have to prove that
Right.
the lot is unique.
right, so he did say this particular lot, and we don't have to agree that it makes it unique from others, but I think
Right.
it's important that we go over what was presented. It was presented that this is a pie-shaped lot that starts out bigger towards Greenwich Road, gets narrower towards the back. It has a conservation easement in the back that it looks like, he said, takes up maybe half or just under half of the lot. You have an existing septic on the opposite side of where he wants to put the garage. He has that and his pump on that side of the house. And the existing driveway is already there. And to tilt it to make it within the setback would require reworking the driveway is how I understood it, to have a straight shot into the driveway. So I think those were the unique characteristics.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that
No,
we establish those so we
absolutely.
don't set precedent.
No, I
for
agree,
the
100%.
The
Nope.
next and the next.
Nope, absolutely. If folks don't think that that's sufficient, we don't have to, we can say that that's
I
not
think whether you
sufficient.
set precedent or not, there's already been many variances that come before this board in the
Yep.
past for the exact same reason. So
Yeah,
along the lines of
exactly.
that. And then we add on the conservation land, it keeps on getting brought up around people. It's closing the envelope too much in some respects. But it's there.
Well, the only comment I make to that is a setback was put in place for a reason, a conservation. So there's reasons for it. So we have to make sure whatever these reasons that these were applied,
Yeah, I
we're
think
still addressing it.
I think the other thing is the builder who built the home put the house where it was because he couldn't build any place else because of the way he laid out that lot, right? Nobody's so because those neighborhoods are all backfilled in and houses are put where they can be stable and they're not. So kind of bad
With a lot of
decision.
fill.
A lot of fill. In some respects.
I
a lot
actually,
more.
I worked in that neighborhood myself.
So
Right. And, just to Jerry's point, I think it is very important that we do identify the uniqueness because the 5th criteria is always the hardest and it's supposed to be, that we do make sure that we have on record why this particular lot is unique and that's why it distinguishes it from others in the area. So I think his point is well taken. So if we are saying that it is unique, the next question would be, is there a fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property? So I'm going to say that there is not a fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property, given the uniqueness of the lot, and the only location to appropriately put that is where he said he wants it.
Agreed.
I would agree.
Yes, I agree.
All right, and then the proposed use is or is not a reasonable one. I'm gonna say it is a reasonable one because I think having a breezeway and this garage, which I don't think is excessive, is a reasonable use.
Yeah.
If we move to grant the variance, are there any conditions that we'd want to attach to it? My thought would be to say that it's a one-story garage with the dimensions as he put forth. I think it was 24 by 24 for the garage, and the breezeway 10 feet in width and 16 feet in depth. Do
So
not exceed
moved.
that. So, all right, so I will make, any other comments?
I have one question.
Yep.
Up front, we talked about whether it was 8 or 9 feet in. Did we get a determination on that in the end?
He requested 8 feet in.
Well, I thought with the overhang it was gonna be 9.
Yeah.
It was the, it was the.
It
wasn't
is,
the
it's 9
footing?
feet with the overhang and foundation footing. Foundation footing is not normally, it's not normally considered, but overhang on the outside of the structure. is.
Gotcha.
So that can be-
I just want to make sure that we're
Right,
proposing
so-
it covers
If
them.
we
so
don't give
that-
him the 9 feet, then he's gonna have a problem.
Yeah, if you give me 8 and he goes 9.
Right.
Yeah, so should I amend the application for that? That way there's no confusion later on.
No, I think we could.
I think you can
We
do it
can,
here.
we can amend it. We can.
Jeff, do you see?
We're
an
like
issue?
throwing rocks at you.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen any plans.
Welcome aboard.
You know.
You can amend it now, you
But-
know,
So
maybe better go 10 and be done with it.
With that-
No greater than
What's
9
that?
There you
feet.
go with that. If we amend it here.
I mean, if that's, yeah, that's, I mean, it's up to you.
We have the authority to do it.
Okay, I thought we did. I think
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we did it right.
Add an extra foot. So 'cause it wasn't noticed for a 9-foot encroachment. So I'm personally not in favor of granting an encroachment larger than what was noticed and published for it. So if the board moves for that motion, I would not vote in favor of 9.
What would it change with the notice?
Because typically, it's my understanding, when you notice, that's what it is. It's the 9 feet. I mean, it's the 8 feet, and anything greater, that's a greater encroachment, should have had, it should be re-noticed and properly noticed with the correct encroachment in that particular notice to the abutter.
So the
Your
abutters.
butter's here.
No,
Yeah.
I
Can I just?
Well, I don't think any of the buttons are going to show up one way or the other. So
Well-
whether we did 10 or 20, if we even did
buttons.
20, I'm not sure anybody else will show up.
what's that?
If we did the full 20, I don't think anyone's going to show up. But
There's gonna be,
I'm just saying
There's
from
still gonna be
a
a
process
abutter.
point of view, I'm not comfortable with granting a variance greater than what
Without
was
the proper
requested.
public
But if
notice.
it's the board's will to do that, that's the board's will.
I s-
I'm not going to vote
yeah,
in favor
I
of
seem
that.
to remember us doing it one time before, and I also
And-
believe you objected at that time.
Because
too.
I think that's violation of
I'm having
process.
a flashback.
So I would not vote for it. My position would be it was not properly noticed for the legal notice. So there was notice for 8. That's what the application.
So we're
said.
saying 8 is the encroachment of the building,
Well, 8 is what he has for the setback. That's what he asked for. That's what I would be comfortable granting. I think if the board, if they wanted to do that, I think that would not be the proper process.
Can I ask a quick question? In the letter, and I don't disagree with you. I think you got to stick to the books. But in the letter that was sent out to the abutters, the letter that I wrote, does more information go out to the abutters than the letter that I pre-write for them? Do they know that it's 8 feet versus 9 feet?
They do.
Okay.
So they get a letter saying what it is. The
Gotcha.
town does the letter, and that was based on your thing that says, we have it right here.
Yep,
for the
gotcha.
8. So
If we were to approve it for 8 foot, what's the process for, would it make it the process easier for them to come back and say, we need to get another foot at
they
another
would have to
meeting?
go through the whole variance process again. for that additional foot, which would require them coming back for another hearing with legal notice and butter notifications again.
Well, they have to do an engineering, an approved engineering that shows the setbacks. So that means they got to survey and do the setbacks, right?
Well, whatever the
Yeah.
building
Yeah, I
department.
believe that's what I heard originally.
Is it
right?
possible to
Right.
shrink up the breezeway by a foot?
No, no,
Well-
Ben, what about,
I would just, I just point you to the eaves, right? Just. you
Yeah,
can-
I was
you're
under
on-
the,
you're
I
on a
was under
slight
the impression
angle.
it was a building.
what
building
about,
corner.
instead of using a full 1 foot overhang on your end of your roof, let's just go with a rake board? You go with a rake board?
Yeah, it doesn't provide enough adequate watershed really.
Okay.
You want the water to get away from the building, even though there's no basement underneath it. It wouldn't conform to the rest of the houses if it
Okay.
had just a rake board right there. And it would look silly. Or not about silly. So, and I will just add real quick too, similar to other zoning applications, I had a really tough time getting answers back from other departments when I was first going through this process on questions I had. Wasn't not just getting answers, but wasn't getting replies. And one of those questions, concerns I had was, due to based on criteria and how much room I actually needed, what I really needed to do, how likely the situation was. Because I'm also trying to, save my customer's wallet in the meantime if it's just going to be a straight hard up no. So, I've built in a little bit of room, what I believed would be on that, but it's going to be up to the actual physical surveyor to say whether it's exactly right there or not. So, I mean, in my belief, based on the math I've done from the plans provided from the town and everything, there's enough room to be actually within that 8 feet. But like I had said, it was kind of pulling teeth just to get some information, beforehand on spending the money, surveys and all that stuff's not very cheap, as far as doing that before.
So you ready to go ahead with a 8 foot setback versus 9 foot if you think you can build within the 8 foot?
Yes.
All right, so
Okay.
I am going to make a motion to grant before I do that, anybody have any other questions? To grant the applicant's request for a variance from LZO section 310 to allow the construction of a garage no greater than 24 by 24 and a breezeway no greater than 10 feet by 16 feet. That will encroach 8 feet into the side setback where 20 feet is required, and that's going to be a 1-story garage.
So I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
All set?
Yes. Awesome. Thanks for your time, everybody. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Any questions from the board? We do have our regularly scheduled meeting on the 19th. So that's coming up, and we have 2 cases on the agenda for that. So this was a special meeting, but I think it's the Monday, whatever that Monday is.
August 9th.
Is the 19th or the 16th?
16.
16th. So August 16th is our next regularly scheduled meeting. And I have been talking to Troy about getting some training for everybody. So he's going to look into reaching out to NHMA, which is the New Hampshire Municipal Association, to have somebody come in and provide some training. Most folks did get a copy of the updated ordinance, a handbook from OSI, which is the Office of Strategic Initiatives, that they do a lot of training, and that information is very helpful. In the bylaws, we will probably discuss at the next meeting, now that we're up to full capacity officers positions. So if anybody's interested in having a position as chairperson, vice chairperson, or clerk, please let me know. And again, a big welcome to our 2 new members, and to you, Jeff. Welcome. And I think that's it.
So is a normal meeting on
The
Monday?
third Monday. Yep. so
Third Monday.
Third
Okay,
Monday.
This is like second Wednesday.
Right. So what we had.
It's like the first thing I read.
What we had to do, just because there's a lot of change up, was we temporarily amended the bylaws we found that we could get the most attendance on the third Monday. So
Okay.
our bylaws have been temporarily amended for meeting the third Monday of each month.
All right, we're good.
That's it. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You want a second?
I'll second.
Tom second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That motion passes 5-0-0, and the meeting ends at 8:14.